Many times in the past, I have mentioned how much I fell in love with my wife. But today, like never before, I'm here to tell you about a story how I fell first and then in love after with this gentleman and his practice. This actually happens to be one of the most personal interviews that I have ever had, specifically because this man actually had his hands on me, literally. I am excited for you all to listen to this interview and hear from someone who not only is an expert in his field, he also happens to be an entrepreneur. And I cannot wait for you to hear the full story. This is your Strategic Partner Podcast. Welcome to your Strategic Partner Podcast, where we give entrepreneurs the secrets, strategies, and processes to increase brand equity and max out revenue. All right, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. You've made it yet again to another episode. And I have with me today someone who has been past elected in a member of Board of Education between 2001 and 2010. He currently happens to be the councilman, and his oldest son is in the Coast Guards, and he actually is a military man himself. His business started in 2006, which I am intrigued to talk about because he actually got to experience the economy crashing on him. He graduated from UMDNJ in 1994, and he was in a dart league in college, which tells you about his focus and definite stamina of holding a beer, that is. He also has been voted best PT practice in Monmouth County in 2013 with his practice activity first in Eatontown, New Jersey. And he has 3 children, actually happening to be boys, ages of 22, 19, and 16. He coached his son's baseball and basketball team, and he himself actually happened to be practicing in 3 states, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland, and past Cub Scout leader. Now, that is quite the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, make some virtual noise for the one and only Kevin Gonzalez. What's going on, Kevin?
Hi, Ali. How are you? Thank you.
I've never been better. Oh, you don't even understand. I've gotten into your practice for the very first time 2, maybe 3 years ago. And I love the culture. I love you and Denise and how you guys operate. And I sometimes think maybe I should hurt myself a little bit longer just so I can keep coming back to your practice. So first and foremost, thank you so much for being here and giving us a little bit of your time. If you don't mind, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, about your practice, and how it all began, from a passion or from desperation.
Really passion, to be very honest with you. I knew from a young age I wanted to be a physical therapist. Actually, in high school is when I wanted to be a physical therapist. When I had physical therapy for myself for a shoulder surgery. But then when you graduate, you went to PT school, you graduate from PT school, you have to get the experience first. So I worked in nursing homes. I worked in hospitals, you name it, I've done it, did home care. But my passion's always been outpatient orthopedics, as well as obviously most therapists, their dream is to open up their own practice. So finally, in 2006, immediately prior to that, I was a regional manager for a national physical therapy company, in charge of different parts of the state and probably about 15 to 20 offices. So I learned what to do in terms of how to run a practice and what not to do to prevent a practice from closing. So in 2006, the big company that I was working for started putting out feelers that, hey, look, we're thinking about selling the outpatient division, or we're thinking about shutting it down completely. So with my future in jeopardy, or not knowing what was going to happen, I decided to just, to make the lunge into my own practice.
Oh, here's a few things that you've mentioned that definitely catch my attention. The very first thing, you worked in nursing homes as well,
Correct.
in the beginning of your career. That is a space that requires a lot of patience and a lot of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Has that impacted who you are today in your practice in any way, or not necessarily?
No, it definitely has, because when you develop, when you're in physical therapy school, they teach you the objective things on what to do in terms of to do your craft well. But in terms of learning the empathy and learning how to deal with patients, because you can deal with different personalities of all shapes and sizes. You can deal with family members who are a little bit more controlling rather than others, and there's a difference between being controlling and difference between being, I guess, concerned and asking questions. I've had parents that have come up to me when I was a 24-year-old graduate, and kids come up to me and say, "Wait, you're my mother's physical therapist? How old are you?" And that's a little, so you sort of have to, and then of course they get into the kick that, they're older than you, so you shouldn't be in charge of their loved ones. So you get a little of that. But I bring that up because you have to learn how to develop a thick skin. You have to learn how to deal with all personality types, and definitely working in the nursing homes, you're dealing with patients who are, have a lot of life experience, who just want, they know they're at the twilight of their existence, and they just want to be treated with respect, and they want to try to get better as much as they possibly can. And then you have the other side of that, where you have, that same or a different person who might be confused, dementia might have set in, and that probably helps to ease the pain a little bit. But you have to, there are some people that take advantage of someone's dementia in that kind of closed setting, and you can't do that. That's actually pretty bad for someone to do that, but it does happen in nursing homes, and I hate to say it. So you just have to give the best care you possibly can, and just make sure that you're being respectful to that person. So yeah, it does teach you a little bit dealing with different personalities and how that relates to working in your own practice.
That's awesome. And it really shows, because, you can tell sometimes, you're in bed number 7. That's mine. You're laying down, and you see people coming in and out, and you see how not only yourself, but the rest of your staff, Denise and Allie herself, the passion and the compassion that they show for each individual, the understanding, when somebody says, "I don't feel like doing that," and you're like, "Uh-oh, somebody's pushing back," and you still say, "Hey, it's okay. Just do what you can."
Right.
You still love on people. And, it makes sense now with that background why you do have that communication style and the culture that you have. So one of the things that you said that definitely caught my attention is what to not do when you took over the practice itself. And this is an area that is probably personal to my audience who are going to listen, because we all hear from entrepreneurs and success stories. I got an established business, and here's what I'm doing. That's great.
Right.
But then it's rare when we hear, here's what you should not do. If you could put the top 2-3 things as an entrepreneur and a business operator that you should tell everybody, hey, you might not want to do that, what would those things be? Hi, my name is Ali Midawi, and I have spoken over 500 conferences in 3 languages, including TEDx and many Fortune 100 companies, sold books in 7 countries, and I focus on helping struggling entrepreneurs to leverage social media and the digital space to create brand equity and revenue. Visit me today at winwithali.com and let me show you how we can grow your financial bottom line and help you expand with momentum.
Well, when I first was promoted from a site manager to a regional manager, they gave me 21 offices, and within 6 months, I narrowed them down to 17, because those facilities, the other ones that we had to close, were underperforming. And then they moved me to another part of the state, the southern part of the state, to sort of do the same thing. So I was sort of the hatchet man. But you'd be surprised how many times, now, again, we're talking about, this was a corporate environment, not somebody who owned these facilities. So they really weren't sitting there cutting the checks every week. So, I found a lot of mistakes in terms of contracts that people would have. They would have people coming in and do the cleaning services. I mean, I looked at one office, and they were, being charged $600 a month for cleaning services. I mean, you really had to really get down into the details of a facility. Some of these managers were very quick to bring in outside help instead of doing it themselves. or hiring additional people instead of asking your current staff, hey, look, can you extend yourself a little bit? So I think that's the biggest thing is, the managers had to take ownership for what they were producing and for everything in their office in terms of what comes in and what comes out. Some of those managers who unfortunately didn't last long when they brought me in, they really, they sort of just wanted to make it a 9-to-5 job. And if you are a clock watcher, any of your people that are with that follow you that are on this webcast know that as a business owner or even a manager, it's not a 9-to-5 job. If you're a clock watcher, you're not going to last long at all. And that's probably the most important thing. There are sacrifices like here with this office here. I mean, I do my own electric. If a light goes out and, we do our own things. Those other offices that I mentioned that I used to manage and I closed, if there was a light bulb out, they would call somebody to come and, and change the light bulb. Spend $300 to change a bulb that they can do for $8 and go to Home Depot. So those are the types of waste you would see in some of those offices and some of the things that when I came here, I just tried to, it's amazing how much you can cut if you trim the fat off of some of the things that you could do yourself. Or now in the advent of YouTube, you could Google it, go on YouTube, find out what to do and do it yourself.
Yeah.
So,
No, that last one, man, you're spot on with that one. It's like we have access to information like never before. I mean, even 10 years ago, I don't think we had the amount of information that we have access to today. Right. So, but what I've picked up out of that one is take ownership. And I mean, that was spot on. Another thing that I've picked up from earlier, and this is, I personally am curious about. See, I didn't get into business until 2009 somewhat. And then 2010, I really went full force because there was the recession. Right. You started your business in 2006. Correct. You've seen the gas prices hitting the $5 and the economy going crazy. And did that impact your business? And how did you pivot to maintain and stay in business?
It impacted a little bit in that a lot of the deliveries and a lot of the services we got these extra service charge for gas service charge. And if we had the HVAC guy come out or we had our bottled water delivered at that time, we got a little bit of a charge from that. But, with the crash and the economic recovery, people still got hurt. We were able to still stay open. We had to manage our margins a little bit more closely because the revenue wasn't coming in. During that time, you had people that had maybe $5 or $10 copays. Well, now their copays were $30, $40, and $50. So if they had to come 5 days a week and you had a $40 copay, $120 a week, the average American can't afford that. So you had to try to find a way to manage your business. So instead of them coming 3 times a week, with a home exercise program, maybe they can have to come twice a week or maybe even once a week. And provided that they're motivated enough to do a home exercise program, then we could manage them once a week or twice a week just because the copays were so high. So that's something that we had to learn to adjust back at that time. Me personally, in terms of the gas prices, I only live 1.5 miles away from my office. So the gas prices for me, I mean, my car does maybe, 50 miles a week. So it doesn't really affect me per se, but in terms of what's around me, yes, it does. It does affect in terms of what's delivered and things along those lines.
That's incredible. Now, fast forward that experience to the pandemic, which had a little bit more of a direct impact.
Right.
Walk us through how you maneuvered and maintained the bills paid in the practice.
Right. Well, we did get, we were able to get the PPP loan, which everyone was talking about. Right. We got a couple of county grants that helped tremendously. We never closed during the pandemic. Now, we were here 6 days a week, pretty much 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and also here for a few hours on Saturday. So once the pandemic really started to take effect in terms of our census, we actually closed to 3 days a week. I had to stop Saturdays, and then I was physically in the office for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for limited hours. And then Tuesday and Thursday, I was doing telehealth. So that's something that we did probably from mid-April probably till the middle of June, beginning of July. And then things started to get better. And then I was able to slowly open my practice. Now I'm open 6 days a week. My hours aren't what they were pre-COVID, but I do have, I'm open 5 days a week. 6 days a week. So from that aspect, but in terms of what we had to do, I had to watch all of my expenses during that time. I mean, really critically. And there were times before the PPP loan came in and things along those lines, you really had to make a decision in terms of what bills do I pay this month? What bills do I hold off on paying this month and pay the next month? So I had 2 or 3 months where I had to go back and forth. And then now everything is pretty much caught up. But there was a time there where I had to make those type of decisions, because one thing with my business is it takes sometimes 2 to 3 months for me to get reimbursed through the insurance company. So although, my census really started to take a hit in, let's say, middle of April, I really didn't start to feel the financial pinch of that until probably July.
Hey, Ali Midawi here, the author of The Lion Network Marketer. You may be one of the 47,000 people who have purchased the original book 5 years ago, but today we have recorded the audiobook version. But for every chapter from 2016's launch, we've added a new chapter from 2020. Pick up your copy today at no cost to you in winwithali.com. So now in July, I'm picking up, but I'm still working on the revenue that I had from April. So that was challenging. And now we're in the second wave, we're feeling the same thing. Our census is going down again. It's also holiday time as well. Probably in January, February is when I'm going to feel this pinch if this keeps going on. Yeah. And what's your, from the way you're seeing it, because you're a frontline, you're an essential worker, and you're dealing with a lot of different people. From your vantage point, what do you anticipate? And not that we're saying that you can predict what's going to happen with, because it's kind of forces that are outside of our controls. But from your vantage point, what do you anticipate as a business owner first and as a practice second that you can advise people to be aware of from the way you're seeing it?
Well, in terms of what I see in terms of the future, I think that, I think that things are, once people start getting vaccinated, I think you're going to see, things start to loosen up a little bit. I probably see that happening in the April, May timeframe. However, I do see that the masks, in terms of, maybe the practitioners, that's not going away for a while. So I do feel that, let's say it's June, July of 2021, and things are doing much, much better. Me as a practitioner, I might not mandate my patients to wear masks, but I could see myself wearing a mask for a while. And that, again, that's giving the patients the comfort, additional comfort, coming in to the office, knowing that, that we're doing things, we're going over an extra to make sure that the patients are safe. I do plan on getting the vaccine when it's made available to me. Also, the things that we're doing here is we're making all patients wash their hands. We're taking the temporal scans. We've always disinfected the office after anybody's on a table, changing the pillowcases. But now we've taken additional steps. I mean, if someone goes away from the cable column, we're wiping down the handles on the cable column on the arm bike, where typically we didn't really do that. We did that maybe once a day, twice a day, talking about wiping down the handles on the arm bike. Now we're doing it after every patient. You touch anything, it gets wiped off. I also have one of those industrial foggers when I use a CDC approved solution, and I fog the office 2 to 3 times a week. I just did it last night after patients. So things have changed in terms of your audience, in terms of where you should go to a place where you feel comfortable. And if you don't feel comfortable, if someone's not wearing a mask, if they're not disinfecting something the way you think that they should, mention it to them. And just definitely you have to be comfortable. We have to manage our way through this crisis. Things will get better. Here, we also had to move tables around so that I had 4 tables on one side of the room that were, if you measured the head of each table, they were 6 feet apart. So it was okay. But the optics from looking from afar, patients really aren't going to say, they're just going to say, oh, that looks a little bit too close. So I actually took one table away from that side of the room and put it on the other side, just so the optics look better. Now there's 3 tables. So that gives us a challenge when we're trying to manage patients in our caseload because we have one less working table. But hey, it is what it is. You have to work with it, and you have to do the best you can with what you have.
Yeah, that's spot on. You've mentioned telehealth and the adjustments that you've made. Um, 2 years down the line, COVID is a thing that we talk about. Remember back in the day, you know, in the BC days before COVID, right? And do you see anything that you've implemented in this period, in this time, because of COVID, that you may say, you know, this actually is a good process that I plan on continue on using or continue on doing? Is there any of those elements, such as telehealth, for example?
Well, telehealth is great. Telehealth is great if you have a motivated patient that you know that they don't need the hands-on that, you know, I'm famous for giving. I love to make sure everyone gets stretched, gets whatever hands-on that they need. They get that from me. Obviously, you can't do that in a telehealth format, but there are some patients who maybe are more athletically minded than other individuals that maybe are just doing a stretch, just a skosh incorrectly, and you could pretty much adjust that with a telehealth visit. Telehealth is great for that certain segment of patient where they need it. So I can see that sticking around. Unfortunately, though, the insurance companies originally, when they authorized telehealth, they basically, in the past, they never paid for it. Now they're paying for telehealth, but they haven't said it's going to be an ongoing thing forever. So once COVID goes away, I think that some insurances may keep some form of telehealth, but I think telehealth is going to go away in the extent that it's being utilized now because the insurance companies are just not going to pay for it.
Are you a hopeful or struggling entrepreneur? We'd like to introduce you to YEP, an entrepreneurial community that has expanded over 6 continents and helped over 5,000 individuals. The Young Entrepreneur Project would allow you to start, scale, or grow your business at the level you desire by providing you with a library of unlimited trainers and modules, a marketplace where you can lower all of your expenses, increase your capital, and even the opportunity to become a contributor, a speaker, and a trainer, or even get paid to mentor others within the platform. Learn more today at winwithali.com.
That's my opinion. I think that answers your question.
That definitely does answer my question. Now, that's good. You've mentioned, you know, there's a lot of things that you're learning, and your education is I mean, you have a plethora of education that you've received. My question to you, and for those who are listening, maybe you can help me out with this one, because I'm an advocate that education is not an event. You don't go to class and then you get out and you get a diploma and it's over. And that diploma is just your foundation. But education, in my opinion, is ongoing. Do you continue still, even with a successful practice, continue on and learn new things and educate yourself on new ways of doing what you do? Or do you feel like it's a traditional format? It is what it is. I'm good.
No, you have to constantly, I mean, you're learning throughout your entire life, throughout your entire existence. There are patients that come to me that say, oh yeah, you know, I used to live in Staten Island and I went to a therapist up there and they did this certain procedure on me. And I said, what's it called? Oh, and they mention it to me and I might not know what it is. And there are times where I've gone out and I've actually sought, you know, the education or tried to find a course regarding that, whether it's Reiki therapy or some of those other types of things. But I'm always, with my licensure, I have to take 30 credit units a year, every 2 years, I'm sorry. But even with that, I'm always reading journals. I'm always speaking with patients. And again, if something piques my interest in terms of a past treatment that they may have received from either a physical therapist, a physician, or even a chiropractor, I'm not closed-minded from that aspect. I want to be there to treat the whole patient. So I want to be as educated as I can. And so I'll go out and seek those that type of information.
You've mentioned one keyword that I got a bone to pick with. So you've mentioned Reiki, and I love it. I've gone through a couple of sessions, but now more than ever, everywhere I look on social media, everybody is a Reiki guru. Everybody is a master. Everybody claims that I can heal you. You don't have to go to traditional doctors. You don't have to go to a practice. Just come see me in my living room and I will fix you up.
Right.
I think it's okay that you have your own area of expertise and that you're certified and documented. It's fantastic. But I feel like it's somewhat dangerous to tell somebody you don't have to go and see the traditional medicine or the traditional doctor. Just come to my place and I'll help you out. Could you please, as a professional, help me out about the dangers of claims? And not because you've gotten certified on level 1 on Reiki in the last 6 months that you can now speak at the level of a physical therapist. Could you please help us out on that if you could educate?
If I understand the question correctly, yes, there are different forms of different kinds of, Reiki is one of them. There's myofascial release. There's a contract. There's a bunch of different things out there. But those are just little tools in the toolbox of what you can to treat a patient. Physical therapists, by definition, we're pathokinesiologists, how disease affects movement. Except physical therapist rolls off the tongue a lot better than pathokinesiologist.
I would never say that.
So that's basically it. But we're more conventional medicine. When you're getting into Reiki, when you're getting into myofascial release, when you're getting into all those other forms of treatment, those are all more alternative based. However, they can be used. You can't just do Reiki on one patient. You can't just do myofascial release on one patient and expect to get an optimal result. If you can, then you have a very small segmented, that patient just doesn't have a lot going on per se. But I mean, that should just be one tool that you should really use to treat that whole patient, because a patient is going to need to be stretched. They're going to need exercise. You can stretch them all you want, but if you don't strengthen the muscle, the treatment may be for naught. So it's just, you really can't put too much faith in directly and only into those methods of treatment. It has to be used in conjunction with other methods of treatment to treat the whole patient.
I appreciate you clarifying. And the reason I'm saying it, just so you know, so I've been in business for 13 going on 14 years, and my area of expertise is business development. And I've dealt with many direct sales companies that have networking models and whatnot. And the average individual will go through 1 month worth of videos and start claiming things, like, oh yeah, my product can help you fix vitiligo. My product can help you grow hair. My product can this. And it is, I think, not only irresponsible, because there are a lot of people who would listen to whatever is online. There are people who try to avoid a copay, and they're like, oh, look, I looked at this thing on YouTube and I can fix myself by scratching my back against the wall. And that's why I wanted you to, as a professional, probably cement that for me. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of fun questions in here. So you're a father of 3, and you and Denise are sports parents. Right. So how do, because sometimes I hear, hey, Saturday we're going down to Timbuktu for a sporting event and whatnot. How do you manage being a father or parent and maintaining business and keeping your personal sanity, having your own me time? How do you do it?
Well, it's just tough. We just look at the schedule and we just say, okay, we know when we're going to be at the office. Anything other than that, then, we try to devote for the kids. So, we've been doing that since the kids were a lot younger. Now the kids are older. They're in high school, college. One is out of the house completely. He's in the military. And so, we just, it's in terms of, you've heard the analogy of people putting rocks in the jar. You have a jar, you put the big pebbles in. If you put the small pebbles in first, you want to have room for the big rocks. You put the big rocks and go. So I'm sure you've heard that analogy. My wife and I firmly believe that the kids are first. So basically those are our big rocks that we put in the jar first. So once we put, we work around the business, because obviously the business is probably the first priority, because if the business isn't successful, everything else sort of falls by the wayside. But this very, very close second priority is spending time with the family. And then after that, everything's a distant third. So that's basically the way we run our lives. So yeah, so if we know, like, we have my one son, he's a junior in high school. He was thinking about playing baseball in college. He just got an email from a coach that wants him to go to his school. think the school is in Western Pennsylvania. So now my wife and I have to try to make try to make that work with everything, especially with everything going on. Prior to COVID, we would, it's just making a hotel reservation, going out there, coordinating it that way. But now with COVID, there are a couple other things we have to worry about. But yeah, you just make it work. My wife and I, in terms of our me time, we really don't have that per se, but we also know that in 2-3 years from now, we're going to be empty nesters. So we'll have all the time to worry about it at that point. But right now it's just the kids and only the kids, and everything else is a distant second.
You did it right, guys. You definitely did it right. Now, speaking of your lovely bride, you work together.
Correct.
Most couples would murder one another if they have to actually deal with each other from crack of dawn. Now, I'm blessed that my wife and I, we work from home. So we're together literally every single second of our lives, out or inside, we're together. So have you ever had to figure out how to maneuver it? Do you bump heads, or is it the perfect nest inside and outside the house?
Yeah, we've had fights or arguments, not fights, but we've had arguments at home. When we wake up in the morning and we're still upset at each other. But when we come to the office, we're fine. But then when we go home, if we have to discuss it again, we discuss it again. But very rarely, I want to say since 2006. So in the time that we've been here to 14, almost 15 years, I think there was maybe twice where my wife and a non-business related issue sort of creeped its way into our daily practice here. But and that most recent time was probably about 5-6 years ago. It just doesn't happen. We just know when to turn that part off, and be coworkers.
I love it. Now I understand. It is the Dunkin' Donuts that comes in the morning. That's the reset button. It is the Dunkin' Donuts. No, that's awesome. And shout out to Denise. She, you can tell your role is, in the practice, and you can tell her role, but then you feel the energy that you both have, that one is completing the other. And it's really beautiful to watch, not only as entrepreneurs, but as couples, to be quite honest with you. My wife and I admire couples who figure it out and continue to work on themselves every single day. When it comes to staff, how do you bring a staff member? Like, what are some of the things that you look for? I mean, of course, qualification, certification, those fundamentals, but in a person, what do you look for? Well, now start with saying Ali, because she's probably listening.
Well, it's definitely, we've been very, very blessed that the people that we've hired have probably, I want to say 80-85% of them have been people that we've known, or people of families that we have known. Yeah. Ali, you mentioned her. Ali is someone that I know of her family from softball. Her and her sister, and they all were big softball fans and players in town. When it came time for me to hire a rehab technician for my office, she's been with me for 6 years. So 6 years ago, I spoke with a friend of mine, Andrew Facone. I said, do you know anybody? He goes, oh yeah, I know Ali Montefinisi is looking for a job. So that was sort of the way, she came to us. And then not only did I hire Ali, but I hired her sister at the time. Her sister's now in Florida, so she left me. But Ali's been with me for 6 years. I also had another employee who was with me for 8 years, 9 years, and you're talking through high school, through college, and a year or two after. So, I am fortunate that the employees that I hire, they stick around for a long time. And I want to say most of them are people that we've known. The young lady, Olivia Snyder, that worked for me for so long, I've known her since she was 3 years old. She happened to live across the street from me at one point. And she was working with me since she was, I think, at the end of her freshman year in high school. And she worked with me until she was a year or two out of college. And now she's doing something. She's moved on to bigger and better things. And I'd like to think that I had a little bit of a part there in terms of developing her professional outlook, in terms of how she handles herself. And she's doing great now. So that's the way we hire the staff. The other therapist that I have working for me, I've actually went to PT school with her. She actually does my Saturdays. Her name's Robin. And I actually have known her longer than I've known my wife. I've been married for 24 years. I've known Robin since 1991 when I went into PT school. So that's just, I've been very, very fortunate with the staff. Very rarely do I have to send out a resume and hire someone from off the street, because I'm able to find people within the local community that I can hire.
That's awesome. And it's kudos to you also for essentially your way of reinvesting right back into the local community as well, instead of, going external. I got a fun thing that I do whenever any of my guests mention, back in 19 and such, I let them know how old I was. So in 1991, I was 6 years old. In case you were wondering. All right, good stuff. So, Kevin, activityfirstpt.com for any and all information that anyone may have about the practice itself. And for those who are listening right now, and obviously there's a lot of stress, whether it's financial stress, political stress, racial injustice, like there's just a lot of noise that people are getting hit by every single day. You seem to be probably one of the relaxed, happiest person that I deal with on a regular basis. What is your message to those who are listening out there to maintain focus on the good side of life? And how can we as a people, as a country, go through a better and brighter days from the divide and the stress that we're experiencing and seeing right now?
Well, all I can say is you stress over the things you control or you can control, but don't stress over the things you can't control. If you sit there and lay down in bed and wonder, hey, how am I going to do A, B, C, and X, Y, and Z? You have no control over it whatsoever, which is the pandemic. Then, I mean, you're going to make yourself sick. But instead of that, look at that as a challenge. Okay, COVID allows us, we can't do A, B, C, or X, Y, and Z. Well, what else can we do to try to make the best of it? Well, now that's when we got the fogger. We were screaming it from the highest rooftop, in terms of social media and everything else, that look, this is what we're doing to keep our patients safe. We're putting it on our website. Those are the things you can do. And short of that, you don't stress over the little things. I mean, they will get better. You have to adapt to what you can. And when you leave the office, yes, as a business owner, you're thinking about your office 24/7. When I go home early and it's 5 o'clock and I'm saying, wow, I should be at the office doing something. I mean, as a business owner, that's just the way things are. You ask if someone has a hobby. No, my hobby is my business. But there are certain times where you just have to totally just shut off the phone, relax, lay on your couch, watch TV, and just totally escape. And I try to do that 2 or 3 times a week, even if it's for an hour or two, just to decompress and reset my internal clock, so to speak. That's worked for me. But again, the most important thing is just don't stress over the things you can't control.
Right on. And ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from Kevin Gonzalez, the father, the husband, the business owner, and the physical therapy practitioner. I could not tell you again and again, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and the privilege to have you on this platform. And we will be, God willing, having you more often in the future in our live cast, in our live panels after COVID, because you, sir, have a very positive look at life and definitely have a lot to teach many of the next generation of entrepreneurs, and you're doing it right. So kudos to you. Congratulations. And I could not thank you enough for being with us on this podcast.
Thank you very much, Ali. Pleasure to be here. And I look forward to sitting with you again.
Right on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been your Strategic Partner podcast. Keep in mind, if you are a struggling entrepreneur looking to leverage social media and the digital space to create brand revenue and equity, visit winwithali.com today.